All right, hello again. So in this video, we're going to take a quick look at After Effects. After Effects is an Adobe app that is a motion graphics app, ostensibly. It's been used for a lot of things, film titles, animation, commercials, video, but it's also used now quite a bit in UI to show animation. So it has serious animation capabilities. That's kind of what it's for. So you can animate pretty much anything as far as properties of things, size, scale, opacity, color, shape of pass, almost anything you can think of. It's been around for a long time, but it recently, well, I don't know how recently, but started being used for demonstrating animations in UI. Now, it's not really interactive, so its output is basically video most of the time, but you can convert those videos to GIFs, if you want to use it in Figma, say, that kind of thing. And that's a typical workflow, is to do animation, show it what you want to do, especially micro animations that are real short, right? Show what you want to do in After Effects, and then you can put that into a prototype and people can see it. You know, you really can demonstrate advanced sort of animation stuff that maybe Figma or Sketch or whatever doesn't do. So just to show you some examples first, and then we'll finish up doing a little one ourselves. So I always like this kind of interaction, this micro interaction on Google Fonts, and I actually did a screen shot video or a screen capture to see what is going on, so I could slow it down and kind of see what's happening here. So this is a shot of clicking on a font in Google Fonts. So as you can see, I'm kind of scrubbing back and forth here. As the user clicks, now this is actually happening where the click happens, so we're not doing that in After Effects, but we're kind of simulating this animation. So what happens basically is it's fairly simple. As soon as the user clicks, this circle starts to sort of ripple out, and it's a little darker, and it kind of ripples from the point where you're clicking. And then the background of the card, this is the card for the font Chrono 1, right? Also gets darker. So if I scrub that back and forth, you can see what happens. Then it goes to the page, obviously. So fairly simple, but pretty cool. I always kind of like that. And you'll see this micro interaction a lot. Actually, now it's kind of trendy, maybe, where sort of rippling effects or color effects or something happens where the user clicks as sort of a transition to get to this other screen. So here's what it looks like in After Effects. And so After Effects, when you do micro interaction stuff in After Effects, like I said, it's kind of a rendering of a video, so it's not really happening. It's a simulation, right? So a lot of times when you'll see After Effects used for UI animation, it's actually the whole screen. So I don't have an example of that to show you guys, but what I mean is somebody may render the whole screen and show what it looks like. It's not particularly interactive. It's just showing what happens. It's not like Figma prototype where you can click on different things and see a different state of the screen. It's basically showing you what the screen looks like. But you can do it at completely high fidelity because After Effects being Adobe, it's integrated with Photoshop and Illustrator. So let's take a look at this. This is the same or animation I kind of reproduced in After Effects. So we got Papyrus here. If you guys haven't seen the funny SNL Saturday Night Live video on Papyrus, just look it up. I'm sure most of you guys have seen it, but if you haven't, look it up. It's hilarious. Anyway, so all this is a rounded rectangle with some text on it, right? And then there are a couple of shape layers here. So before we look at that, let me just give you a super quick tour of After Effects interface. And I'm not gonna lie to you, it's pretty complicated. It's like like a mission control for NASA or something. So, but anyway, over here on the left, you've got the project window, which has all your assets and things. So, like I said, you can import all kinds of different things into After Effects: audio, video, of course, Illustrator files, Photoshop files. These things are called comps or compositions, comps for short. And that's the animation. That's the term that After Effects uses for the little animations. So that's up here in the project window. Then you've got sort of the work area where you can see what the video or the animation actually looks like. You got properties over on the right, like you normally do in an Adobe app. And then most of the meat of it is down here in the bottom in the timeline. So being an animation program, you can scrub through the timeline here, grabbing this playhead. These are different layers. It's kind of like, I call After Effects Photoshop that moves, which is kind of what it is. It has a lot of the same blending modes as, actually maybe the exact, well, not all exactly the same, but pretty close to the same blending modes. A lot of the same things that work in Photoshop work in After Effects, but they can all be animated. That is the difference, right? And you can do some sort of basic video motion stuff in Photoshop, I guess, but yeah, this is really specialized for that. So backing up, so getting back to this, so that's kind of what we're looking at. I'm dragging the playhead here. These little diamonds are keyframes. So After Effects works on keyframes, meaning, let me zoom in here a little bit. Well, I'm zooming two different ways at the same time. So the little diamonds are keyframes, and that is changes where you're setting up different properties. So what's going on here, we got a couple of shape layers. There's that circle, and the circle starts to get bigger right there. So it has a scale property. I think this is it right here, where it says scale. And you see those numbers change down here as it goes across. So we're scaling that circle. And then also the color is being animated on the background on that rounded rectangle. So that's why we're seeing that. And there's also a mask in here. So you can do really serious masking. One way to do that is called a track matte, if you can see that. So this layer is actually acting like this layer is acting like a track or a matte or a mask for this other layer. So these two layers are working together. That's why the change is sort of isolated here in this round rectangle. I know that sounded pretty complicated. I may have just changed something too. I don't know. But that is there's a little replication of that. So we'll look at how you actually get this out, because this is an After Effects, right? This is not anything yet. You have to render it out. So we'll do that. We'll show that as well. So that is kind of the basics of that Google font example. Wanted to show you how you can open Photoshop files with layers in After Effects. So if you want to work in Photoshop, you can go from Photoshop directly to After Effects, and things get sort of kept in their layers and things like that. So here's an FAB animation, just a version. I'm just gonna drag it to this After Effects icon, and then I have to get this in the thing here. And it says import as, I'm gonna import this not as footage, but as a composition. And I'm gonna retain layer sizes with editable layer styles, sure. And I'm gonna say okay. And it comes in, you can see as FAB animation 15. Wow, did I do that many versions? I don't know. But if I, it says it has a problem, missing footage. I may have messed it up. But anyway, it comes in with it comes into Photoshop with its layers intact, which it didn't mess that up for you guys. But take my word for it. You can import Photoshop files and have them show up in After Effects with layers, and I must have deleted something that goes into that FAB. So, but anyway, it is possible. And then I also wanted to show you too. Here is AI files. So if I double click that, you'll see there's a little heart that you'll see later, and that is an Illustrator file. So being an Adobe app, like I said, it's kind of well integrated with Photoshop and Illustrator and XD as well. So, and here's a little FAB button that I got from materials.io. This is the assets that you can get from material.io from Google. And that's the little floating, FAB is floating action button, right? So there's the little button as an Illustrator file. So just wanted to show you that. Sorry that, the FAB thing didn't work. Maybe I have it in here. No, that's the animation. Anyway, okay, so that is how you can import stuff. So let's take a look at some of these things. How does this work in Figma? So I wanted to show you one of these. Let's see which one here. Oh, the tap. So I made this little tap animation, and it's fairly simple. So I make this in, this is just to show like a tap, right? So it's just a sort of a little animation that shows a user has tapped. So kind of demonstrating in, in a UI, in a prototype, what does that look like? So all this is a red circle that gets bigger. And then as it gets bigger, there's actually another layer inside of it acting as a mask. and that's the black part in the middle. So we're seeing kind of the outside edge of the circle. And the animation here is a little bit offset so that they expand at different speeds. That's it, mostly. So it just does that, right? That's what it looks like when, and that's supposed to simulate like someone is clicking. And I made it red so you could see it pretty easy. So then when I went to Figma to bring this in, so what I did was, just to show you as a demo here, there is a frame here called frame 3, and inside of that, it has this GIF. So I'll show you how to make the GIF part at the end here. But I got my text that says go, and I have my rectangle background, and then I've got this GIF here in frame 3, and that one is activated on touch down, meaning I've clicked on this button. So this, I'm in the prototype mode, right, in Figma, and then so I click on this, right, or I touch it, you know, if it's a touch interface, and then it goes to this overlay. So I'm using an overlay here. You guys have seen this before, I believe, hope so. If you haven't, so what that does is substitute this guy, or opens this overlay, this frame, when this one is clicked. So this version doesn't have the little animation in it. If I look at that one, it's one of these, it's this one, I think, right? It doesn't have the little animation in it, or it's turned off. I think it's just turned off. So this version has a little animation in it. This one doesn't. So if we click on that, let me show you what it looks like. I also have a little delay, I think, in there to see that happen, but let's see what it looks like. Let's click on present. And then what should happen is as I click on this, it opens that overlay, which has that animation in it, which is just a GIF. All that is a GIF. So I'm going to click and you'll see there's the little animation. Not a big deal, but it does show so that, you know, the user has interacted with it. And then on mouse up or touch up, that was touch down. I'm touch up. I put another command to go to the next screen. So there we go. So I'm clicking. As I click down, I see the little animation, the little overlay pops up with the animation in it. And then when I release, it goes back to the first screen. So that's the interaction, right? So touch down goes to this one with the animation in it. Touch up goes to this screen. And then touch down on this one, or tap, sorry, on tap navigates back to that screen. That's all that's going on. So that's with the touch. It's basically the same, this other version here, and you guys should have this. I'll give you this file, hopefully. Same thing, this one has mouse down and mouse up. So the difference is this is supposed to be a touch interface, right? This one's supposed to be a click, like if you were on a computer with a mouse, but it's the same things going on there. Yeah, so that's that. Let's look at the next sort of version. So this one has, staying here in Figma, this one I did a little fab animation, FAB, floating action button animation in Figma using an overlay as well, or actually navigation. So this time when I click here, it goes to this other screen that has these 5 little stars. And the stars are actually in this one as well, but they're all lined up. So if I look in here, there's stars. See if I select those stars are down here underneath the FAB. So what we want to happen is, like you'll see a typical sort of interaction, I'm going to click on this FAB button, and then it's going to have this menu, and I'm just using little icons, these stars to represent a menu, are going to float out and then end up like this, right? So the stars are all here on this version, this screen. The stars have been spread out. I think they're pretty even on this version. And then we're just using the Figma animation this time to do this. This is not After Effects. This is just to show you the difference here a little bit. So I'm going to click on this and we're going to go to this, and you can see it's doing on tap, navigate to this screen, and it's using Smart Animate. And since all the layers are named the same in both versions, remember that's kind of how that works. So star 1 through 5 is on this screen, star 1 through 5 is on this screen, but they're in different places, obviously, right? So if this works, then it should animate. Let's see. And then I think on mouse out, I've got go back or something like that, but let's take a look. So here we've got the screen, right? There's our FAB. I click on the FAB. Oh, cool, a little animation. And then I click on it and it goes back again. So that's a little simulation. You know, it's great. It's cool. It's got some animation. It's realistic, right? Maybe you have a little menu here that does some, these are just stars. They're just representing menu items or icons or some sort of action that happens when you click on this button. Great, right? But, it's just kind of going directly there. It's just going up and coming back, right? Up and back. It's like you're working out like on your treadmill or something like that, or doing some weights or something. So let's take a look at what we can do in After Effects instead. And this may or may not be worth it to you, but just to show you that you can do this kind of stuff. So I have this one called Fab Animation 16. And I'm not going to do this one with you guys, but I'm just going to show you the difference, right? So what's the difference? Obviously, the difference is these are hearts, which are different than stars. That's the main difference. No, that's not the main difference. The main difference is, if I zoom in here a little bit so you guys can see a little better. As I scrub, this is called scrubbing, right? As I scrub, they're not going directly up. They are kind of, floating up like balloons or snakes or whatever. It's whatever you want to think. So because I have control of every exact position of these hearts this time, in After Effects, I can put them wherever I want. So if I want to change one of these, let's say I want like this one here. Which one is this? This is heart 4. I don't like where that one is, right? I want it to go, I'm going to go to the keyframe. Here's the keyframes again, these little guys here. I'm going to go to the keyframe for that one. And I'm going to, I want him to go to the left. So I'm holding down Shift and hitting the arrow key. And now anytime you can see the path this thing is taking, right? Anytime I move something, as long as I have a keyframe, something animating, which is the little stopwatch here. I'll show you that too in a little bit. And then the keyframes are the little diamonds, right? As long as I have something that's already animated, if I make any changes to that property, like position, then it's going to record that for me. So I don't have to do any coding or obviously or anything, and it will kind of just update for me. So now that I move that guy over, he is now doing this path instead. And it's minute control is what it is, right? So there we go. So I can put that FAB. I could export this as basically a movie and then turn it into a GIF and then put that into Figma, and then it'll do this instead of what we saw over there. Now it's not interactive completely that way because this is all just one image now, as opposed to what we just saw in here, where these are all individual elements. So I could put links on these. So there are some disadvantages to that too. But if you want to show more, elaborate animation, that's kind of the way it goes. So here it is. I did it in After Effects. And what I'm doing on this time is I made that animation. And then again, I'm going to open a frame. So the frame is the one with the GIF with the animation of the little hearts. And then we're using an overlay again in Figma, same thing we did last time. If I play this one, so here's my FAB, right? I click on it. Oh, look at that. How nice is that? Now it doesn't go back because I haven't set that up, but if I click away, it goes back. It closes the overlay. But now I've got sort of a little more, subtle, controlled animation, and I have complete control over this thing. I could have it do whatever I want. So, but it's pre-rendered, right? It's just an image. It's a GIF. It's not actually animating in Figma. It's just showing this GIF that's in this other frame. All right, so yeah, that's kind of what some uses for the animation that you can render out of After Effects. Let's go ahead and try it. So this is what we're gonna make this time. This is sort of a splash animation. So a splash screen is something that comes up. It used to come up on websites, not as often anymore. Sometimes loading or something. But when an app is loading, often you'll see a little splash animation. So what's going to happen here, it's blank, and then we'll see our name, our logo animate on. And this could be anything. In fact, here's an example. I'll show you this before. Here is a logo, and you can animate a stroke along a path, for example. Pretty standard thing, right? So I could make a logo or use a logo for a company if I want, or for an app, and then I can animate that and have that kind of happen, right? You could have it do writing, you could have it do all kinds of stuff, but obviously that logo is not very good. It's very vague. I don't even know was this for a chicken drum? I don't know what that company does. But anyway, so we're going to do this one with a letter. So here's what it looks like, actually. Let me go play this guy. Oh, it draws on my name. You're going to use your name, not my name, or my initial. Use your initial. Unless you have an M, and then I guess it's the same. Let me go back to the front. So it's a blank, right? And then I'll refresh it so you can see it again. So it's basically going to draw. I've got to go back this way. It's going to draw the letter on, and then it's going to dissolve to the actual app. And it is a boring app, I'm not going to lie. Right after that, it becomes boring. But it does have a good opening animation. So how do we do that? So we are going to, let's take this M animation here, and we'll just start with this since it's the right size, and I'm going to duplicate it. So I've got Fab Animation 16 here. Hopefully it's the same for you guys. Oh, no, that's the wrong one. We're going to do M Animation 1. There we go. So this is it, and this is what it looks like right now, right? So let's duplicate it, and we're only going to do that because it's already set up for the right kind of number of frames and all that kind of stuff. So to duplicate, we can just select this over here. We're on M Animation 1. I'm going to do Command D, and that duplicates the comp. So you can have as many comps, which stands for composition, remember, in an After Effects project as you want. So an After Effects project can have tons of animations in it. It's not every project is one animation, or every animation is one project. You can have multiple. So, okay, so I've got my M Animation 2. It's basically the same as 1. All I'm going to do is select these 2 layers and hit delete. There we go, until it's gone. Okay, so now we are going to put in a letter, of course. So I'm going to click on the type tool up here, which is way up here. Command T if you want to do it that way. And then I'm going to click inside my composition up here in the comp window, and then I'll do a G this time. And I can move it so that's in the middle. I can make it whatever size I want. I already had this set up, or it's just using my last setting. So I'm using SF Pro Display. No real reason for that. And then, but I am using a thick version. So black, I'm using black, which is very thick. And then I'm going to make it, let's make it even bigger. And then I'll move it kind of towards the middle. And yeah, I think that is good for that. All right, so next what I'm going to do is right click on this and say create shapes from text. So what that's going to do is basically create outlines. So now I've got a shape from that text. It's not really a letter anymore. So you'll see this different layer here. Here's the original layer down here. And just like in Photoshop too, by the way, and in Figma, I guess, everybody uses the eyeball, right? So the eyeballs mean that that layer is visible or not. So now that I turn that into a shape, I can twirl open that layer. So you got this little disclosure triangle, and I'm going to click on that, or twirly, some people call it in After Effects, and then you'll see that you can, this is where I was talking about, it gets pretty complicated, or can get pretty complicated. You can twirl all these, and you'll twirl and twirl and twirl, and you'll see more and more stuff buried in here. So sometimes it's hard to find what you want to manipulate a little bit. And it gets, because you can animate almost anything, almost anything is under here too. So, but anyway, so I'm going to go up here where it says, so I've got this open, right? And then right here, there's a little arrow that says add. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going, whoops, undo that. I just forgot to unclick. I'm going to go to trim paths. So you click on that and go to trim paths, and then you'll see this other sort of thing appear, and there's an eyeball on there, and there's trim paths that's already highlighted for you. And then I'm going to open that up, and you'll see you get a start, an end, and an offset. So we are only going to have to use the end. So if you want to animate something, you click on the little stopwatch. So there's a stopwatch right there. You just click on the stopwatch. It'll turn blue, and you'll get a little diamond over there that tells you that you set a keyframe. So I basically set a keyframe there. By the way, this is set up in frames, and not usually by default. It's set up in time. like video frames or video time, but this is just set up straight for frames because it's a little more practical for what we're doing. So what we're gonna do then is I'm gonna set this at 0. So I'm gonna click on that 100 right here and just type in 0. And now you can see that you can't see the text. And actually, I probably want to turn off the stroke and turn on the fill, or turn on the stroke, sorry, and turn off the fill. I think I can still do this even though I just animated that. So to turn off the fill, I'm going to, I don't even have to open that. I'm just gonna go to where I can see fill and then click on the eyeball. Because we're not doing the fill, we're only doing the stroke. So I'm gonna click on the eyeball. The stroke is still there. There, so now the stroke is on. Actually, it wasn't on, so I turned it on with the eyeball. And then I want a bigger stroke width, so I'm gonna go, let's try 20. We can always change that. You notice that you can animate that too. You can animate everything, it's kind of crazy. But let's try 20, I think probably 20 will be okay. So what I did was I turned on the stroke over here on the left, because it wasn't on, and the fill was on, and I turned it off, so I turned the eyeball off. And then I set the stroke width to 20. If I wanted to animate that, I could animate that, but I don't really think we need that. All right, so now we go back down to our playhead here, and then I'm gonna go out to 30 frames. So I can just drag it. You could also click here and type it. There's a million ways to do everything in After Effects, kind of like Photoshop. And then I'm going to set the end property down here in the trim pass again. So I'm down here in trim pass where it says end. It's still set to 0. So as soon as, and here's the keyframe that we set. So now if I set this to, click on that and put 100, you can see now that this says 100 obviously, but now there's 2 diamonds. That means we animated that thing. And if I go this way, oh, check it out. It's animated. And actually 20 is pretty good. I mean, you could make it thicker if you want. You can obviously change the color. I'm just gonna leave it black. What I kind of do want to do though, it's kind of going counterclockwise, it feels like, and I want it to go the other way. So there is a button right here underneath the G, or next to the G, it says reverse path direction. You click that little guy right there, and there are hundreds of millions of little buttons here in After Effects, I'm not gonna lie. But if I click on that, it should reverse it. And then now if I drag, yeah, that's kind of better. It just kind of feels more forward if I go clockwise to me. We go big? Let's try 25 on the stroke. I'm not going to animate it though. Whoa, I did 250. That's a little bit too thick. No, I think 20. It starts to look not like a G anymore, huh? That's what I'm thinking. Okay, so there's my G for Garrett. You guys do a different letter than M or G, so I can see it in your when you guys do it. Okay, so I think that is it, or almost. So I'm out here at frame 31, and I want to make sure that this animation is the right length, or I want it to end right here is basically what I'm saying. So I'm gonna hit, make sure I'm at frame 31. I am at frame 31, right? Yeah, and then I'm gonna hit N on my keyboard, and that trims the work area. So this is called the work area right here. It's basically the work area. It's where you're kind of doing your animation. So that my comp is actually longer than that. I think it's 100 frames or something, but I don't want it to be that long because this is all, it's done, right? So I'm gonna right click on the work area and say trim comp to work area. Or I could go up to comp and trim comp to work area up here, but let's just right click, trim comp to work area, and I think we're good. So if I hit the space bar, you'll see what that looks like. The space bar is, will play your animation. I should have told you that earlier. It's kind of fast, but I think it'll be okay. Sometimes people will do these at 60 frames per second when they're doing some of these animations in After Effects, which is kind of double speed from video. Normal video, like you'd see on TV, if anybody watches TV anymore, is like 30 frames per second. Movies are about 24, or they used to be 24. Now they're getting faster too, but there are different frame rates. So this is, I think this comp is set up at 60 frames per second. Maybe I'm not seeing my compositions. Oh, it's off screen here. Yeah. So it's set up at 60 frames per second. So that's a half-second animation. Let's see if I change this to 30, what'll happen. I think it's still okay. Oh, it trimmed my everything. Let's do this. Let's drag this guy out. So yeah, so what I did was go to composition settings, because I think that's gonna be a little too fast. And then I'm gonna change this back to 30 frames per second. So I changed that to 30 and said, okay. So it's still the same, but it is still fast. So now it's a half a second long. I think that's too fast. That's easy to fix. So what I can do is grab this, and this is the stuff you have to do with animation, right? Play with timing. I'm gonna grab this and drag this keyframe out to 30, or actually to 30, not 31, I'm at 30, aren't I? There we go, let's drag to 30. Yep, and then I'm gonna extend this layer out too, because if I don't, it won't be visible. So I'm gonna extend it all the way out. I think we're good now. So let's try that again. So that looks right. So I grabbed this, what I did was I dragged this keyframe out to frame 30, and then my work area is still at 31. That's still fine. And that's all I need to do really. So now if I hit space bar, that's more pleasant, right? It's kind of too fast is what I was thinking. So I wasn't thinking that was set up to 60 frames, or else I could have done it 60 and then had this animation go 60 frames and done it as a higher rate, but I don't think we need that. So here's what you should have. You should have 31 frames out here on your work area. This keyframe, second keyframe, is at 30 frames per second, and I think we're good. So what I'm gonna do then is now render this thing. So this is still stuck in After Effects. So what I'm gonna do is go to File, Composition, and then you should see Add to Render Queue right there. And then you'll get your window will disappear, and you say, what happened? Well, it's just in the tabs here. So you got a tab here. Here's my animation. It's M animation 1, even though it's the 2. That's kind of strange, but I just got my right letter in there. And then here's the render queue. And then down here it says M animation 1. You could change the name of that if you wanted to. Actually, you can't change it there. You'd have to change it there. But here's the render queue. And then render settings is set to best. We can leave it at that. And then this is set to lossless. What we want is, and you can see I've done it already, lossless with alpha. So I'm gonna click on that little drop down arrow and go to lossless with alpha. That means it's going to give us a transparent background. We don't want a white background, we want transparency. And then that's about it. So except we wanna say right here where we want it to go. So I'm gonna click on that. You can click on that, you can say where you want your animation to go. So I'm gonna say G animation, and it's gonna save it as, on a Mac it's gonna be a .mov, on a PC it's probably something else. But it shouldn't matter. All we're doing is making a video of this animation. So whatever comes up by default, you could try that if you're on a PC, but on a Mac you probably want to use a QuickTime. So now it is, I think it's ready to go. So I'm going to click on this button way over here that says render. So I'm gonna click on render, and that was really fast because it was short and easy. After Effects is pretty hard on the computer depending on the number of animations and things that are going on, and it can get really slow. Like a frame can take 30 seconds to render one frame, but this is really easy, so it was easy. All right, so if I look back in the folder I just did, that is right. Well, let's see where it went. There it is, G animation 1. If so, that is right now it is a .mov, which is a QuickTime movie on a Mac. Like I said, it's gonna be different on a PC. But now what I can do is I can drag that. I'm gonna take that and open that in Photoshop. So I'm gonna drag it to the Photoshop icon. It should work same way on a Mac or PC. Drag it to the Photoshop icon. Here it is in Photoshop. My Photoshop's the wrong size. It has a timeline visible. If the timeline's not visible, make sure you go to Window and then make sure that timeline's visible. There it is down there at the bottom. If I drag the playhead here in Photoshop, there it is. It's just it's opening a video in Photoshop with a timeline. And so we are pretty good. All I'm gonna do, I think, is maybe crop this thing a little bit. I could go to the end here where the whole G is visible, and I could go to image and trim. And then do our old trim trick where we trim away the transparent pixels. And then we get just that. So let me do that again. I think it's okay. I'm worried it's gonna cut off some of the anti-aliasing, but it looks actually okay. So I'm gonna go to image, up here, trim, trimming the transparent pixel because I don't want all this extra space. I don't need it. I'm gonna say okay. Now the whole thing is to the right size. I think that looks okay, yeah. Now all we have to do is export this guy. So I'm gonna go to File, Export, and Save for Web. Remember, that's how you can do an animated GIF. So File, Export, Save for Web. And you'll see this. I'm gonna go to the 2-up tab right here. So I can see the original and the GIF version. So we wanna make sure this is a GIF. If it's not set up as GIF, click GIF here. And then number of colors, you could probably leave this the way it is. It's not gonna be a big file. So you can see it's a 39 kilobyte file. And we're not putting this on the web anyway. It's not gonna go directly to the web. It's going into Figma or wherever else you wanna put it. So we don't care as much about the file size here. So we'll just leave all these colors. It has 256 colors there. In here, I can play it inside of the Save for Web dialog by clicking on the little play head right there. And since these are all set up, it's set up to play at full speed. It's gonna play kind of as fast as it can. Now, one thing that we don't want, let me stop that, is looping forever. We don't want that. We want to, because then it's just gonna loop and it'll look horrible. We wanna click this and go to once probably. And so now if I play, it plays once and it stops on the full G, right? I think we're good. So now I'm going to click save down here, right there. And I'll save this as ganimation1.gif. Sure, that's fine. Make sure I know where it's being saved to. I'll click save. And it saved it. So now I'm gonna hide this, and I'll hide this, and we'll go back to Figma. So now I'm gonna go to Figma, and here is the page. So there's the previous one that I did. I'm going to take this GAnimation1 GIF and drag it in, just like any other image, since it's just a GIF, right? And then what we can do is substitute out this one for that one. So I've got my M animation in there. I'm just gonna take it out. And you can't really see it because it's kind of invisible because it starts blank, right? And I'll put that one in and line it up in the middle. And everything else should already be set up. So what I've got here is I got this animation playing. I do have a delay in here of 2000 microseconds, which is 2 seconds. That is so that we're giving this animation time to play, right? If we don't, it'll just go to this screen. If it goes automatically to this screen, you're not gonna see the animation. So there's a delay in here of 2000 microseconds. You could adjust that, obviously. And then I'm gonna do a dissolve just for fun to dissolve to this screen. All right, so if everything is working correctly, let's see what it looks like. I'm gonna click on present, and there it is. Oh no, it works. Pretty fun, huh? So here we go again. One more time. I just like it. I don't know why. It's stupid. You guys probably don't like it. Maybe you do. That's it. We did it. So sorry about the little hiccup there with the timeline being at 60 frames per second. But like I said, you could do it at 60 frames per second, and we could have extended it out. So just to give you a quick heads up on what that would do, if I made this comp at 60 frames per second and then I extended the animation out to 60 frames per second, it still would be a 1 second animation, but the animation would be a bit smoother because there would be less movement per frame, right? The faster the frame rate is, the smoother the animation, but the more frames there are, so it's more processing, and it probably wouldn't matter in this one, but it might look pretty good actually. We could have, and there's other things we could have done. We could have done Well, for this one, this wouldn't really make sense. But you can do motion blur and all kinds of things, make it look like real motion, like it's shot with a camera. But yeah, if we would extend this out to 60 frames and then change the frame rate of the comp to 60, it would have had a little bit smoother motion. But it actually looks pretty fine this way, if you ask me. Let's see it one more time. It might look a tiny bit smoother. But anyway, I think that's it. So hopefully that was kind of fun and helpful, and I'll talk to you guys again later.